and Rafa sent me a message, but I saw it like 4 days after.
He was buried in
Yeah,
your DMs.
so I left him undelivered for 4 days, and I almost died.
The 2026 Miami Open just ended Alex Eala's best run of the season. She fell in the round of 16 to Karolina Muchova.
10 out of 10 for a performance today. Whether Eala was restricted or not, we do not know. She had new strapping on her thigh today.
Failing to defend the semifinal points she earned here a year ago. On paper, a setback. Off the court, the week confirmed something that has WTA rivals quietly panicking.
She has more confidence and she goes for her shots without any doubt, I would say.
During Indian Wells, Paul Anacone, Roger Federer's former coach, made a deliberate public endorsement of Eala's game before the tournament even began. Around the same time, reports of a Federer-Nadal exhibition tour began circulating, raising a question every brand manager in tennis immediately started asking.
As promised, the phenomenon, the pride of the Philippines, up to a career-high ranking this week of 29 in the world, back.
Which active player sits closest to that commercial orbit? Nadal chose Eala as his first hitting partner after a full year away from the sport. Commercial analysts tracking Southeast Asia's 650 million consumer market have already placed her brand valuation trajectory in the $50 million range, based purely on the regional access she represents to global sponsors. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button right now. The line that got crossed happened the moment Nadal stepped onto that court and picked her, because after that, no sponsor in the world could look at the WTA pecking order and pretend Eala's name belonged at the bottom of the list. That November 2025 hitting session was not a charity gesture from a retired champion keeping busy. Nadal had been off a tennis court for exactly 12 months. His body had gone through the physical toll of a career that stretched across 22 Grand Slam titles and 2 decades of elite competition. He could have eased back in quietly, hit with an academy coach, a training partner, anyone. Instead, he walked onto the court with a 20-year-old Filipina who had been inside his academy since the age of 13, and he posted the session publicly on Instagram for his millions of followers to witness. That decision had a commercial consequence that the WTA's biggest names are still calculating. Eala had been training at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca for 7 years by that point.
Eala from the Philippines could be the next big thing in pro tennis.
This was a massive spot to be in for such a young talent, to have a sold-out crowd completely behind.
To do well on the WTA Tour. I'm super proud of what I was able to accomplish, but the end goal is to win Slam.
7 years inside the infrastructure, the culture, and the daily discipline of the most decorated clay court player the sport has ever produced. Most players who train at elite academies graduate as better athletes. Eala graduated as something more specific, a direct extension of the Nadal brand identity. Patient, fierce, left-handed, built on consistency rather than spectacle. And when Nadal stepped back into public view after retirement and chose her as his reintroduction to the tennis world, that brand identity transferred in a way no marketing agency could have engineered. His caption said it plainly. Next time, I will be stronger. A 22-time Grand Slam champion telling a 20-year-old that she pushed him.
And the Olympic team to give me that moment. Give me that moment, because it's not a moment of the ceremony. They give me that moment.
That single sentence, read by Nadal's global fan base, reframed every conversation about Eala's commercial ceiling. Paul Anacone spent years as Roger Federer's coach, helping guide him through some of the most dominant stretches of tennis the sport has seen. He is not a commentator who fills airtime with generic praise. When Anacone speaks about a player, the assessment carries the weight of someone who has spent years understanding what separates a good professional from a generational talent. Ahead of Indian Wells this year, Anacone chose to speak publicly about Eala. He highlighted her grace under pressure, referencing her win over Iga Swiatek at the 2025 Miami Open as the moment that revealed something deeper than just a good result. He also pointed directly to her fan base as a force the sport needed to take seriously. That endorsement landed during the same news cycle in which reports of a Federer-Nadal joint exhibition tour began surfacing. The timing was not coordinated, but the effect was cumulative. Within days, the two most commercially powerful names in tennis history were being linked, explicitly or implicitly, to Eala's trajectory.
Eala, the phenomenon. We didn't know, largely, the tennis community a year ago before her run in Miami, and now it's must-see TV and drawing maybe the biggest crowds anyone outside of Alcaraz Center in the
Tournaments are such great experiences for me, you know, especially playing in front of the best crowd ever. And
every brand manager with a WTA sponsorship budget started asking the same question. If Federer and Nadal come back into the spotlight together, which active female player benefits most from proximity to that moment? The answer required no debate. Eala trains where Nadal built his legacy. Eala receives public endorsement from the man who shaped Federer's game. There is no other player on the WTA Tour who sits inside both of those circles simultaneously. That is the structural foundation of the $50 million valuation, and it is why rivals who outrank her are the ones feeling most exposed.
these tournaments are such great experiences for me, you know, especially playing in front of the best crowd ever. And I do my best. I do what I can, and just if I see an opening.
So young, and she's just coming through, so and obviously the first couple rounds, the schedule is so packed.
Before we go further, if you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This channel exists to give you the angles the mainstream tennis coverage skips. Madison Keys won the 2025 Australian Open. Coco Gauff claimed Roland Garros. Iga Swiatek swept through Wimbledon with a historic 6-0, 6-0 final. Aryna Sabilanka defended her US Open title in New York. Between those, 4 players, all 4 Grand Slam titles in 2025 were covered. By every conventional measure, the commercial conversation should begin and end with them. But the sponsorship strategy in 2026 is not operating on conventional logic. Commercial analysts who track the Southeast Asian market have been making a specific argument for months. ASEAN economies collectively represent over 650 million people. Digital consumption across the region has grown at a rate that outpaces every other market in global sport. Football and basketball have successfully built commercial ecosystems in Southeast Asia through regional heroes, players and athletes who gave local audiences a personal stake in a global sport. Tennis has not achieved that. The limiting factor has always been the absence of a durable, elite-level presence from the region. Eala is changing that equation directly. Her matches in Asian tournament settings draw attendance levels that her current ranking does not justify.
But I'm a person, and I feel like, you know, people will like you for who you are if you are true to yourself. And
on paper, that gap between ranking-based expectation and actual crowd behavior is precisely what sponsors pay analysts to identify, because it signals an undervalued asset before the market corrects itself. By the time Eala reaches the top 10, the cost of associating with her brand will be significantly higher than it is right now. The brands that moved early understood this. The brands that are still hesitating are watching rivals gain positioning they may not be able to match later. Nike did not release a limited edition shirt inspired by a player ranked outside the top 20 because they were being generous. They did it because their commercial intelligence told them that Eala's cultural resonance in the Philippines and across Southeast Asia warranted a product that spoke directly to that market. The shirt was designed by Filipino artist Georgina Camus and featured the national flower of the Philippines overlaid on Wimbledon's grass courts. That is not a logo. Placement, that is a brand building a cultural story around an athlete. The kind of investment Nike makes when they believe a player is transitioning from promising to iconic. Milo followed in February 2026 with a brand ambassador agreement. Globe Telecom has had her since she was 8 years old, a bet placed on a child that has now paid out at a scale nobody anticipated when the deal was signed.
she's being told X, Y, and Z. And I don't think.
Of course, the atmosphere in each tournament has been amazing, and it's been a different start this year than any other year I've ever had. So
The Bank of the Philippine Islands attached its name to her brand around financial literacy and discipline. Each of these partnerships reflects a different dimension of what Eala represents commercially. A young, culturally grounded, globally competitive athlete whose story resonates across age groups, income brackets, and geographic borders. What none of her current sponsors can fully account for is what the Federer Nadal exhibition tour adds to her valuation if it moves forward. Exhibition tours built around retired legends do not just generate ticket revenue, they generate a media environment that reactivates the entire sports commercial ecosystem. Federer's final match at the 2022 Laver Cup drew one of the largest tennis television audiences that year, and that was a singles-doubles farewell, not even a competitive match. Nadal's farewell ceremony at Roland Garros in 2024 produced one of the most watched moments in tennis broadcast history that year. When both of them share a court, which the reported exhibition tour would produce, the attention generated extends far beyond their direct fan base. Every active player connected to that moment benefits from the spillover. The connection does not need to be formal or contractual. It needs to be visible, consistent, and credible. Eala's connection to both men is all three.
Eala, the phenomenon. We didn't know, largely, the tennis community a year ago before her run in Miami, and now it's must-see TV and drawing maybe the biggest crowds anyone outside of Alcaraz Center in the
Tournaments are such great experiences for me, especially playing in front of the best crowd ever. And
Coco Gauff acknowledged after a recent match that she personally apologized to the crowd for making them wait before Eala's match.
I know you were mostly supporting Alex, but I have to say it is great to be on a crowded court. I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot. And also, like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate
That moment was not a throwaway comment. Gauff is one of the most media-savvy players in women's tennis. She understands optics. When she publicly tells a crowd she knows they did not come primarily to watch her, she is acknowledging a shift in crowd allegiance that has real commercial consequences. Because sponsors who pay for association with the WTA's most magnetic draw now have to consider whether Gauff's name still carries the premium it once did in certain markets. Sky Sports presenter Gigi Salmon described the atmosphere at Eala's Dubai match this season as feeling like a Taylor Swift concert. That comparison is not casual hyperbole. Salmon covers elite tennis regularly and understands what a normal crowd response looks like at a WTA 500 event. When she reaches for a Taylor Swift analogy, she is describing something outside the ordinary range of athletic stardom, a celebrity-level pull that transcends sport. Kim Clijsters, a four-time Grand Slam champion, offered praise for Eala's performances at both the Abu Dhabi Open and Dubai this season. Former world number ones do not typically single out players ranked outside the top 20 for unsolicited praise. The fact that multiple figures from the sport's elite history, Annacone, Clijsters, Nadal himself, have all directed public attention toward Eala within a short time frame is not a coincidence. It reflects a recognition within the sport's inner circle that something commercially and competitively significant is developing around her, and that attaching their name to it early carries value. Eala herself, when asked about the extraordinary crowd support she receives, answered with the kind of clarity that makes brand managers comfortable. She said her 5-year-old self would be proud, but not surprised, because this was always the dream.
I do my best. I do what I can, and just if I see an opening, I think it's important that I go for it.
That framing, delivered without arrogance and without false modesty, is exactly the character profile that global brands spend months trying to manufacture in their ambassador relationships. Eala does not need to be coached into sounding authentic. She already is, and authenticity at scale is the most expensive commodity in modern sports marketing. The WTA rivals who are panicking are not doing so because Eala beat them on the court recently. She lost to Muchova in Miami. She dropped in the 4th round at Indian Wells to Linda Noskova. The ranking points are a complicated picture right now. The panic is coming from a different source entirely. It is coming from the realization that Eala has built something off the court that rankings cannot measure and that titles alone do not create. She has built a cultural position inside the Nadal legacy, adjacent to the Federer network, representing a market of 650 million people that global tennis has never properly activated. That position did not emerge from a single tournament run or a viral moment. It was constructed across 7 years of development inside the world's most recognizable tennis academy, Redefining, through a series of high-profile wins and losses that each added a chapter to a story that resonates far beyond tennis courts. The $50 million valuation is not the ceiling. It is the current estimate of what her commercial ecosystem is worth before the Federer-Nadal exhibition tour lands, before she wins her first WTA 1000 title, and before Southeast Asia's digital market fully converts its attention into measurable brand spend. Every one of those events is a multiplier. Rivals sitting above her in the rankings do not have access to a single one of them. That is the line that got crossed. Not a ranking threshold, not a Grand Slam quarterfinal. The line was crossed when two of the greatest commercial forces in tennis history positioned themselves, publicly, repeatedly, and credibly, around a 20-year-old player who fills stadiums in markets her rivals have never been able to reach. And once that line is crossed, no amount of ranking points redistributes the commercial advantage that comes with it. The WTA's biggest names can win every title on the calendar in 2026. They will not close this gap because the gap is not measured in titles. It is measured in markets, in networks, and in the kind of legacy proximity that cannot be bought, earned through performance alone, or replicated by any player currently on tour. If this breakdown gave you a perspective you hadn't considered before, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this story is nowhere near finished, and the next chapter is going to hit harder than this one.